I'll take this out of my mouth or I'll
Spit it out.
spit it out. Good afternoon. We'll call our meeting to order and we need the roll call of our members, please.
Yes, ma'am. Is Bobby online or no?
He's on. I'll move him over.
I am.
We do have one member, Bobby Orozco is
Participating.
participated online.
Mr. Orozco,
Present.
Mrs. Crumley,
Present.
Mrs. Cameron,
Present.
Mr. Kroll present.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the salute to the New Mexico flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you. I would entertain,
We have Madam Chair, members of the board, we have a couple of clarifications on the agenda that I'd like to present before you approve. On action item 8D, it has a approval and quote from Gordian, a CES contractor for playground equipment at my little school. The installation will actually occur at Memorial Elementary School for their pre-K, but it does fall under Miss Sweeney, who is the pre-K principal. So we just wanted that to be very clear. And then as you can see, we don't have all our board members here tonight. So in the closed session, the superintendent's evaluation will not be discussed. And with that, that's all the changes.
okay. Do we have any other additions or changes to the agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Would you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mrs. Crumley,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes.
Mr. Kroll, yes.
Okay, thank you. The agenda has been approved. Item 5 is public comment. Then we did not have any signed up today, so we will go on to our reports. And Superintendent, would you?
Sure. Madam Chair, members of the board, I am super excited to recognize, we know you as Lucy, but I know you go by Bella Madrid, a high school teacher. She was awarded the New Mexico Association for Bilingual Education Educator of the Year award recently, and we just like you all to be able to recognize her, congratulate her. We appreciate all the work. She's also our ballet folklorico specialist who does a lot of great performances, and we are just so happy you teach for Deming Public Schools. Congratulations on your award, and we have a small token of our appreciation and the board. Do you want your platter also?
Congratulations.
Wow, you got a lot of stuff. Thank you. You want to set that down? Yeah. Pretty impressive. Thank you. Thank you for coming. We just wanted to recognize you publicly. We appreciate you. Yeah. That's. You're welcome to stay.
We'll get a strong person to help you carry all of that. All right. Our next is our NEA Deming.
Temporary
Report.
Madam President.
Hello.
Members of the board, Mr. Roscoe. Hi. Superintendent Chavez.
That's you.
Thank you. So, NEA Deming advocates for many things that affect our students and our teachers. And one of the interesting things that came out in the last legislative session is that there's going to be changes to our graduation and what's required. So currently, the state of New Mexico does require 24 credits to graduate. The state is continuing that. It's still 24 credits to graduate. Deming currently requires 26 for the high school. This will affect our current seventh graders. So basically, next year sometime, you guys as a board will be voting on what will be the graduation requirements set for our high school students as they enter ninth grade, because it has to be set before they start ninth grade. I'm sure there will be committees telling you guys about it, but just wanted to give you a heads up, because one of the interesting things is it puts in play a little bit more leeway. And as you see highlighted, it says the board gets to choose 2 credits. So Miss Liz Kriegel was gonna be here with me. It's her birthday though. So she made other plans, totally can't blame her.
We could have had a cake.
Yeah, and one of the things talked about is there's been, yeah, oh, ice cream too, of course. She's talked about how she teaches government and econ. And so if you look on the history side, the very bottom one currently is typically government econ that's taught. There's some discussion on financial literacy, which is typically on the math side, the bottom, another math. So as a 12th grader, you would take it. And there's some discussion because the new state law gives a little more leeway on where financial literacy is put. It can be kept as a math class. It can be moved into the career tech and taught still from that angle. I have talked to Mr. Lozano about it, and it'll still be taught with all of the stuff. So they are looking at all of that. I know that as a parent, and I know as Ms. Kriegel, who, had a son who just graduated and a son who's in ninth grade, that I really do feel that it's really important to keep financial literacy. So I don't know if that's something the board can set, as that's a requirement for our students. But just to put it in y'all's view to say, you do get to start picking, and I know Mr. Lozano, and talking to him, said, you guys are the ones that'll decide this, even though there'll be a committee that makes decisions. It wouldn't hurt for you guys at some point to provide your input on the types of classes that you think are going to be required. I do know in talking to people that one of the things that is a tiny bit of a stumbling block to some of this is you've got to have teachers to teach it. So it's easy sometimes to say, I want a history teacher, but if you want, for instance, a computer programmer to teach a programming class, you've actually got to have a teacher to come in to teach it. So just to let y'all.
We can't move you over into that.
No computers programming for me. No, that makes my eyes cross. Let's see, on the viewpoint of NEA Deming, beyond that, we have our party this Friday. We always have a spring party. We're having it at Star Max. Lots of people attend. It's a yay, people attend. We are getting set up for summer and sending people to our summer events, including the national conference is in July, and that will be in Philadelphia this year. So we'll be sending somebody to that. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I'll talk to you next month, please. I stand for any questions.
Are there any questions you would like to ask?
Has there been any discussion about any other classes that have come to mind other than financial lit, or is that?
I know that that's on the side of the union and thinking about it, that we want to make sure that financial lit is a really important class. You always see those views on Facebook saying we never teach government and we don't teach kids financial literacy. Not true in Deming. Almost all of our kids graduate with them. So keeping that. Beyond that, Mr. Lozano, have you had any? I'm sure those conversations have been a lot.
You want me to voice mine? We've just.
If you'll stand up.
Some general ideas, things that we're throwing around is, for example, a student success class for freshmen coming in. One of the biggest things that we see with freshmen is if we get them to pass all their classes, they're like 8% more likely to graduate on time. So setting some type of transitional course, but also on the flip side, our seniors, now that there's only gonna be a certain amount of course sequence, like for English, for example, they only need a 3-course sequence, like freshman, sophomore English, junior English, so then senior English is just completely optional. But we can include that with something like business/technical writing, which still fills the requirements of the English, but then they branch out to something a little bit more technical that they're interested in. But like she stated earlier, one of our biggest challenging, items when we implement things of that nature is staffing. We can encourage staffing to get dual certified, like in business/English, because if we don't have something like that, then we're still isolated to a business class or an English class. But if they're dual certified, we have those options where students can get that English credit and at the same time get the business credit as well. Also for seniors, also doing internship classes as well, where they can do internships. Work-based learning is also an option already in the new requirements as well. But like she stated, we are at 24 for the state, Deming is 26, so there is leeway there for 2 credits for the board to decide where it's essential. Our initial thoughts were splitting them, something at the freshman level for transition, and then something optional for seniors. That depends on what their choices are, if they're college oriented or they're career tech oriented. They have options there as well, or putting them on that side. This summer, though, we will be talking to our staff about putting a committee together of staff members, and then from there branching out to community, and then having options available. I like NEA's idea of having those beforehand, so before even planning, asking you all to see any ideas and opinions you guys have so we can implement those into whatever options we submit for approval.
A little early, you don't have to come up with something today. You know, just something to put on your table, and like I said, it does affect teachers and definitely affects our community.
Right, thank you. Thank you both. All right, number 7 is our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed under number 7?
I'll make that motion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rusco. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Would you call for the vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes,
Mrs. Crumley,
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.
thank you. The motion carries. All right, now we're down to action items.
Yes, Madam
Superintendent?
Chair, members of the board, action item 8A is early colleges requests to tour 11th graders to tour University of Arizona in Tucson. Mr. Simpson, do you have anything you want to add or any?
Nope, it's just part of our avid curriculum to take college field trips. We try to do all of the in-state universities, and then now we have an opportunity to try to hit the University of Arizona in Tucson. It's actually closer than Albuquerque.
Yeah.
Our students
Yeah.
actually are at you, and we're at you in today and are returning. I'll get them another college field trip experience.
So we're just asking for your approval.
Okay. Do we have a motion for approval?
I will make a motion to approve the out-of-state trip for early college, high school, 11th grade tour, University of Arizona in Tucson on May 1st.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and seconds. Would you call for the vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mrs. Crumley,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes,
Mr. Crowe, yes.
the motion carries. Thank you. All right,
Madam Chair, members of the board, action item B is the bar adjustments by Ms. Doyle, but I have to say it is her birthday and she did show up.
Oh.
Just for the record. Not to embarrass you or anything.
How committed I am. I know, I heard that, and I was like, what just happened? Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, before you, you do have bar adjustments. The first two are related to our operational funding. This is an adjustment that you see every year around this time based on our membership. There's a combination of a couple of different adjustments. So you'll see we've got charter school, admin revenue, K-12 and OST. So the first two actually are related to OST and K-12, so those are decreases. So you can see we had our first decrease of 89,000 and then 105,000. The other adjustment later on in the packet you'll see is related to our admin revenue for charter school. So the number 6 that you have before you is a grant that we are receiving for cafeteria, for equipment for our student nutrition program that will be utilized in the central cafeteria facility. Number 7 is a mini grant that was received by Chaparral Elementary that they are going to use to meet SEL needs and by following restorative practices. The number 8, oh wait, I got these backwards, I'm sorry. Number 6 is actually our state allocation for school meals. I apologize for that. I got my notes mixed up. This is our state portion of the student nutrition reimbursement for our free meals. And then number 8 is actually the kitchen infrastructure improvement grant. And this is going to be for equipment utilized in central cafeteria. Number 9 is in relation to our charter school revenue. We do keep a certain percentage, a 2% admin fee for our charter school SEG. They actually got an increase in SEG where we got a decrease. So because of that, we did receive an increase because we're going to continue to take that 2%. The next bar that you have is for a grant that Mr. Simpson actually is applied for, and this is to assist with enrollment or marketing for early college high school. Number 11 is a transfer bar to move for Title I for additional compensation for counselors, conferences, and memberships. And then finally, the last one you have is related for our family income index. This is a grant that is specific to RST, where we had some salary savings throughout the year, and she's moving the money so that we can use it for professional development. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Other questions? Or comments? I think you must have clearly stated it then. I don't think you did. Okay. You have anything to add?
No.
Superintendent?
This is recommendation for approval.
Okay. We need to, do we have a motion to approve the approval of the budget adjustment request?
I make a motion and we approve the budget adjustment request from Mrs. Doyle.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Would you call for the vote, please?
Mrs. Crumley,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes,
Mr. Kroll, yes.
the motion passes. Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, item C is consideration approval of our state bilingual application. And Mr. Chavez is here to answer any questions. It's our annual application that we have to do. Anything you'd like to add?
I'm just here for any questions, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mrs. Chavez, Mrs. Chavez stated, this is our annual application. It has been, quite simplified this year. Actually, one thing that has gotten easier, just one, an error, is this application and the process to get them completed. We do have approximately, we're hitting close to 1,400 kiddos that are in our doing.
1,400?
It is down.
Do we have any comments or questions? If not, your recommendation is approved.
Yep, so we need a motion.
We have a motion to approve, please.
I'll move to approve the state bilingual multicultural education program funding application for school year 24-25.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Would you call for the vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Crumley,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chavez.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, consideration and approval of quote from Guardian, a CES contractor for playground equipment at Memorial School.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this is the same one that I was referring to that changed the placement of the equipment will be at Memorial for their pre-K program, but is overseen by the My Little School administrative staff, which is Ms. Sweeney and Ms. Lozano. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Just that, our playground is needed to support our pre-K students at Memorial. Right now, they're playing on the playground that's meant for K through 5. And so we're just asking for safety reasons. Also, they're required to have 2 30-minute periods every day. So, this will have like an enclosed space and the equipment will be, for 4-year-olds as opposed to older elementary.
And they won't be allowed to use that space.
No, it'll be in a separate area, hopefully maybe the front of the school, and it'll be all gated.
Okay.
And it'll be smaller so the teachers can keep a better eye on them.
Okay, great. Great. Are there other questions? Comments? Then not, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have approval of the quote for playground equipment at Memorial School.
I'll second that.
Okay, would you call the roll, please? A call for the vote, please.
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Crumley,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes,
Mr. Crowe, yes.
yes, the motion carries. Okay,
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, the next item E is for a grant that Early College has applied for and received. And Mr. Simpson, do you want to describe what the purpose of it is and answer any questions?
So this is from the BED, it's a flow-through grant for the purpose of building enrollment in early college high schools across the state. And so, I had to submit a proposal on how to use the amount, and they, then approved that, and then I have to bring this back to the board and to the superintendent for approval in our district. And we are proposing a variety of projects and ways to support students to kind of build student interest and investment and support students to build early college enrollment.
okay. Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the flow-through competitive funding grant as described. We're short on people here. Let's.
I'll make the motion to approve the ECHS flow-through competitive funding grant.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Would you call for the vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mrs. Crumley,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron.
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.
Okay, thank you. The motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Simpson.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, action item F is related to our community schools. We are required to have the board support it through a resolution. We offer community school model, which includes wraparound services at Red Mountain Middle School, and Ms. Chavez oversees that and is here to answer any questions. I know you've had the resolution, so if you had any questions or feedback. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
It is a part of the implementation grant that we applied for. We are really excited about the work we're doing at the community school. And so we were excited to be able to have the board on board with us.
Okay, thank you. Anything else to add to that from the board? Our superintendent?
No, just that we recommend approval as the application is graded on whether the board supports it or not.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the community schools resolution for our district?
I move that we approve the community school resolution.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Would you call for the vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Crumley,
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes,
Mr. Crowe, yes.
thank you. The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, action item G is actually in Mr. Glickler's realm. It's a memorandum of understanding for your consideration and approval for district being future ready. So I'll let you give an overview of what that is.
Thank you. Chairman Cameron, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. The MOU you have before you is a non-binding MOU. It is one that commits us to a project that the state is working on to get the schools. It's the ED plan, and it's for Future Ready Schools for Digital Equity. The organization in question, Future Ready Schools, is going to help build that plan for us. They're going to work us through that process with the team that we select over the course of several meetings throughout the year. There's a cost involved. The cost is $6,500. However, upon the completion of this project, that cost is fully reimbursed by the state. With that, I stand for any questions.
Okay. Is this something that has been going on for a number of years, or a new or fairly new?
This is something that has been going on for 1 year. This is a new requirement that the state has, the Future Ready plan. The ED plan is something we have to align with. And this MOU binds us to this partner that will help us put that plan together.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the district and Future Ready.
I will make that motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the district and Future Ready.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Would you take the roll for the vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Crumley,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron.
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.
Okay, thank you. The motion carries. Thank you.
So Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Glickler is here to talk about authorizing the sale of technology equipment.
Thank you very much. This one here are two different spreadsheets of technology items. There are 999 items in total. They are all broken, old, under $1,000, and in most cases, all three. Of this list, 20 of them are in fact over $1,000, but they are fully depreciated, in some cases because they are purchased in 2005. We're looking to dispose of these items, and we're seeking board approval to do so. With that, I stand for any questions.
Are there any questions? I have to
I'll make the
admit,
motion.
okay, please.
I'll make the motion
Okay,
to approve.
we have a motion to approve the authorizing the sale of technology equipment through public auction. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Would you call for the vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mrs. Crumley,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.
Okay, the motion carries. And you just go on tonight, don't you?
She's got one more item with the sale of our graduating senior devices.
Oh, yes, fantastic. Once again, Vice President Cameron, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, we have a proposal before you to change somewhat the way that we dispose of technology items at the end of a school year for seniors. In the past, we would keep those computers. We might try to find another use for them. They might just get lost. They might never get turned back into the district. We might eventually sell them like we're selling them here. What we're proposing is we take those computers and give the students an opportunity to purchase them from the district when they graduate. Those are computers that the students at the high schools will have used year to year, so it's the same computer that they would have been assigned when they were a freshman, and therefore hopefully one that they've been taken care of. And upon graduation, they'll be having this opportunity to pay $50, after which we will wipe the device, clear it up, prepare it for personal use, and turn it over to them. Those devices, in our experience, when we have to use them in the elementaries, do have a lifespan after their 4 years, after the warranty has expired, which is why our interest is diminished. But after the warranty is expired, they do have a lifespan. And especially for students that are going on to college, they could carry them through another 2 to 4 years quite successfully. I'm in favor of the plan. I think it solved a great deal of our challenges that we have with our surplus inventory in the district. And I think it's also fantastic for the students. I hope that you approve it.
I like the idea. We assume everyone can afford one, and that's not true. Or, so,
Do you think the laptops are worth $50 each?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely did.
I've actually mentioned this to a couple of my students, they're 11th graders, and they love the idea, and they're like $50, no problem.
that's good to know. Okay, any other comments? Or questions? Then we'll entertain a motion for the approval of the resolution authorizing the computer devices by notice to graduating seniors and families. I'll move. Can I move? I'll move. I read it, I'll move it. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. It's a great idea too.
Yes.
Maybe
Agreed.
for the ones that can't afford it, we can find grants or something possible so they'll be able to get it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
We'll look at that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, will you call for the vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mrs. Crumley,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes.
Mr. Crow, yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, action item J is your consideration and approval for a mini grant that Chaparral Elementary School applied for from the NMPED. And I'm going to let Ms. Zimmerman and Mr. Wertz speak to that if you would.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, this is actually a program that Chaparral applied for and was accepted into last year. And this year, you've offered us a chance to apply for the $6,500, which would allow us to extend the social emotional training for the rest of our staff and also provide some trade books and materials that would support this social emotional learning of our students.
You said it was for emotional learning?
Social.
Sorry, I couldn't learn. Okay.
Much needed in our school today.
Yes.
It's much needed everywhere.
Right. Could we do it for some parents and others and that might be something, really. So, and I'm not just pinpointing them, I'm talking about us in general, really. So, all right, if there's no other responses or questions, we'll call for the vote.
No, call for
I mean,
the motion.
for the motion, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Orozco. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Would you call for the vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mrs. Crumley,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron.
Yes.
Mr. Kroll, yes.
Thank you.
Guys for applying for
motion-
that.
The motion carries, yeah. Okay,
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, the action item A is your consideration and approval of a resolution to support the Superintendent Association and our district involvement in the Legal Defense Fund. We've discussed at great length the overreach that we believe that New Mexico PED has done with their requirements related to the calendar days. And this is basically a group lawsuit that is being worked on and will be filed soon. And they are asking for boards to do a resolution supporting the lawsuit against the Public Education Department regarding their overreach into local control. So I'm happy to answer any questions. This is kind of a boilerplate resolution, and it is definitely up for discussion and revision if you so choose as well.
Madam Superintendent, what I'm hearing is they have just been doing what they wanted to do with it. Is that it?
So in the legislative session last year in 2023, the legislators were very clear in the law in expanding school time to be instructional hours only and leaving the number of days to local control. And this allows for many of our districts to be 4-day weeks. It doesn't affect us in terms of the 4-day week versus 5-day week, But how it can affect us is the slippery slope of the overreach of bypassing the legislative process. We have a balance of power with the executive, the legislator, and the legislative and the judicial. And this is a complete agency overreach that I completely disagree with. I think we've discussed it at great lengths in lots of different settings, that it is just a slippery slope of overreach into local control. That's my opinion. But that's where I stand with this.
This is just a letter of support, or is this us?
It's
going
a
in on the-
resolution of support. Yes,
Sure.
Mr. Orozco.
Should we read that?
Do you want to add something?
Yes, I would. To Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, to add on to what the superintendent stated, there was bipartisan support in the funding bill that our legislature told the governor, we don't want to fund these additional days. She then went in line item vetoed.
That's right.
So it is a single act of overreach.
Okay.
What would your involvement, be?
It's just named in it and it's a financial commitment. Right now, our financial commitment that we discussed is $1,000 per district. So it's just the districts that have, and we have, I don't know if we have any charter schools that have joined. I know that's been another conversation, as well as the School Boards Association has not joined that I'm aware of. But the lawsuit is going to drop within the next week or two at the very latest, and will then be at the discretion of the courts for scheduling.
So it's $1,000 per district for legal fees?
Correct. That's right.
I'm 100% for it, so I think it's a great idea. I think the ED has overstepped. I mean, just our calendar debacle has proven that.
Right.
And so, I think, they need to be put back in their place and get their ducks in a row.
And to speak to that, Mr. Kroll, we also, it's an unfunded mandate in terms of the number of days that they're requiring, because they're expecting people to do the same with only the unit value has only gone up $200. And they're expecting us to cover all the raises, all the insurance increases, and cover the additional days. So it's an unfunded mandate right now for a lot of districts, most districts, actually.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion that we support the resolution.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to support the superintendent involvement in the New Mexico School Superintendent Association Legal Defense Fund. Would you take the vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Crumley,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron.
Yes,
Mr. Kroll, yes.
Thank you.
thank you. The motion carries.
So Madam Chair, members of the board, action item L is your consideration and approval of the district 5-year facility master plan that we reviewed last week in work session. Mr. Parker is here to stand for any questions. Review.
Madam Chairman, the Board Superintendent Chavez, this is the culmination of a year-long work of us basically taking a look at all of our facilities and developing a required 5-year master plan that are required for any kind of participation in funding with the state level for any of our projects. I want to definitely thank all of our partners or principals that participate in it. It's an important aspect that sometimes is left off there, and it's something that all of our principals and community needs to be aware of, because it really directs how we're going to improve our facilities, maintain those, and then fund those as we go forward. I stand for any questions. Of course, we had the board work session, and thanks, Smart was our partner in putting this all together and kind of doing the really deep dive on the evaluation statistics and the financial matters on that.
And thank you for putting that together.
But it was definitely a team effort. And
Right, for every,
wonderful questions, wonderful participation. I think we're all stronger for it.
yes. The more voices usually are the best. Okay,
I make a motion that we approve, the district 5-year facility master plan.
okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion, a second for the approval of the District 5-year Facility Master Plan. Would you take the vote for us, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Crumlin,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes,
Mr. Kroll, yes. Thank you so much.
the motion carries. Thank you.
And Madam President, Madam Chair, members of the board, the last action item M is the consideration of the calendar. We have gone through 2 iterations. The first survey was 2 options, and we were hoping to keep our calendar at 193 days. And unfortunately, when the unit value came out, we said there's no way we're going to be able to afford those additional days. And so we basically cut back. I said, Leslie, how much does it cost us to run payroll every day? What do we need to do? How do we make this work? And we settled on a total contract day of 188 days. From the work session, you all gave us feedback. We got a lot of feedback from the first survey, and last Friday developed 3 options. And the first option was the one with 3 remote learning days. It was calendar option A. It provides for 175 direct and student days, 3 remote days, and 2 parent-teacher conference days. Option B was exactly the same, but without the remote days. It would be all face-to-face. And then option C, we were asked to put together what would a balanced calendar look like. That's very different from a year-round calendar. A balanced calendar means we balance our breaks throughout the year. And so we put those 3 options to the vote. And then we also asked 2 questions. We said, we asked the public, would you support a 30-minute shorter day? Because part of this is we're trying to figure out ways. I know I've heard from high school teachers that say, we walk in when the kids do. We'd like a little bit of breathing time before they show up. I've heard it both ways. We're never going to please everyone. So we just wanted to know, could we do a 30-minute shorter day on the front or the back? Would you support that? And you can see from the results, we had on this last result, 1,209 responses, 67% said yes. We also put to the vote the question about the remote days. Ms. Crumley, you asked us to do that. I think it's pretty split, 50-50. I don't necessarily think it doesn't matter to us one way or the other. If they're not productive and half of the people think it's not, I don't think we should consider remote days. That's my opinion. And then moving forward, we asked when you review the 3 calendar options, which one do you prefer? Option C did win out the balanced calendar by 2%, which is not a huge difference between that one and option B, which was the no remote days. And then there's a significant difference with option A that had the remote days. So I think it's very clear that the community, public, whoever voted does not want to see remote days in the calendar. And then the last question we asked is, what would be your second choice? And option B received the most in the second choice, with option C not far behind. So I think we have a pretty close decision between option B and option C. With that, we'll stand for questions. Let you guys discuss.
How many people voted?
1,209. That's more than the first survey. We had, I believe, 893.
Do we know the difference between if they were students or they were teachers?
We do not on this one.
So the kids were open could also get a vote?
Yes, and they did vote on the first one. It wasn't a high percentage, but it was, I can pull that data up, but it was about 20%. It was a good showing. Mostly parents voted on the first one.
Yeah.
So I got a couple of concerns in reference to the balanced calendar, and just one being is that it's starting earlier, correct? It starts in the middle of July versus
It does.
Option B starts in the first part of August.
Option B still starts in July, Mr. Orozco. Staff would start July 23rd. Students would start July 29th.
Okay.
It looks like it's just a week difference.
It is a week difference.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
The only concern that I see is one is that, you know, with kids that are working during the summer to try to buy their own clothes, buy their own school supplies, buy their own gas for the school year, it limits them from that. It's also, we're also a community where, you know, our kids contribute to the family and or help around the house or in businesses. And so that cuts them that short, cuts families that short as well. And so I have a concern with that. The other part of that too is that lost my train of thought. See where I was going with that. The second thought is as well is that so it extends the fall break another week, and then it extends the spring break another week. So some of the stuff that I had heard from parents was the pushback was that, well, the schools start to stop before a break happens because the break's coming and so some days are wasted. But right now with 1 week being for spring break and then 1 week being for the fall break, if that scenario plays out, you know, there's a few days, and I'm not saying that the schools are doing this, but the scenario plays out where there's that 1 week break and then it takes another week to get the kids spun back up. Where now, if this balance calendar happens, there's a 2 week break and then the 1 week before the break and then the 1 week after the break. That's a whole month that some of the teachers have voiced that said that that's a month lost of basically learning. And so it's hard to get them spun back up again, like the kids.
Right.
So it's almost, so those are two concerns that I have with that balance calendar.
I think like Superintendent Chavez said, I think that no matter what is decided, there's going to be a group that's not happy with the decision, either way.
Right.
I think there's argument either way that kids could benefit from having a shorter summer and having more breaks throughout school, and so could teachers and staff, which is what was discussed in the last work session, so that kids and teachers aren't having burnout. And so I think that's a benefit. I think the other thing that the board needs to consider is that the survey was presented as a way of gathering information from, you know, school staff, teachers, students, the public. I think it's great that we had 1,200 people participate in that survey. I would have liked to have known who of those are teachers, who are parents, who are students, but unfortunately we don't have that. And I also think that I remember at the work session, Ms. Padron saying that there was a community meeting to discuss the school calendar. And it stood out to me that she said that there was only about 15 people who showed up, a lot of which are people who are usually here.
Yeah.
So I think that we have to make a decision with the information that we have. I think I'm in favor of the results of the survey, which is a balanced calendar. And I mean, if it ends up being an ultimate disaster, then we don't do it next year.
And that's the thing is that the balance calendar went out completely. I mean, no matter what, if it's a point or 2 points, a win is a win. And that's just the way I see it.
Well, and I think it's just a 2 week difference. I mean, you're taking 2 weeks out of summer and you're sticking an extra week on fall break and you're sticking an extra week on spring break. So everyone's still getting a summer. It's a month and a half of summer. And so
there was an issue that I did not like when I looked at the survey. Was at the beginning, it asked you if everybody wants a shorter time. There's no doubt about it. I want a shorter day of work. I want to do a lot of things shorter, but it wasn't specified that shorter day was going to be in the morning.
It hasn't been decided.
Yeah, and so I'm against in the morning. I think it would affect our community that much more. Everybody that I spoke to loved the day, but when I explained to them that it would be in the morning, everybody told me that they did not like that.
Right.
They like the shorter day. Well, I mean, if we could figure a way to shorten it up.
For the kids.
For the kids,
It's shorter for the kids.
But I don't think it would, I think it would affect us if we did it in the morning. And then the second thing is that everybody that called me and I called you and I told you, everybody's telling me that they want the balanced calendar. And I said, the balanced calendar is gonna win, and they won. Everybody that called me told me the balanced calendar, they wanted to try something new. They wanted to see how it would benefit teachers, if it would benefit students, just to try something new in the community. Whether we make that decision or not, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean,
Right.
that's just where we're at, because
That's right.
people don't show up and don't say what they need to say is the problem. And I wish they would.
We had 1,200.
Yeah, I mean, but we live in a community at least 20,000 people. It would have been nice to have 5,000 people here that say something or mention something. Because that's the decision I'm gonna make. I'm gonna go for what the majority wants. That's the best way to do it. There's no other way. There's nothing here personal. It's what the community wants.
So I do want to make one comment because, if we go to the balanced calendar and that's the one you select, I don't have a preference. I really don't. We work year round. It doesn't matter to me. We're gonna make sure we get things settled and ready and things are gonna operate. That's just how I feel about it. But what I will say is that if you choose to go with a balanced calendar, I would like to propose that we not consider changing it for at least 2 years. And the reason being, there's 2 reasons. One is that we've been living in this chaos with the public education department and changes, and it is very hard to get settled and then have something so drastic like this change. But more importantly, I think it's important staff understands the way payroll will fall. So right now, when benefits are taken out, it's done in June. It covers you through July and August. Once we come back and push back another week, that means payroll starts on July 31st. And Ms. Doyle will probably be able to explain this much better than I can, but that really shifts the way benefits are paid. And so if we were to change next year, that means they're gonna have an extra payment of benefits, but not an extra check like they do now. So I think we have to did I say that pretty much right, Ms. Doyle, with our staff that are not year-round employees?
And I would also add, if I could, that the 3 checks that they normally get at the end of the year, that will not happen because we're going to push the paycheck.
Because we'll start paying sooner, which is great. It's still the same money. It's just readjusting. And I just think if we're changing that year to year, that could be really hard on staff.
But it could be that we're not changing the year.
True.
It could
That's
be
true
that
too.
we implement this calendar that the majority favors, and then it works out
Absolutely.
fine.
Absolutely. And then we don't have to change. I just want us to be aware of all the things.
Anytime we go to do a major change like this,
Yeah.
it's going to be.
And I'm not opposed to either of the calendars at all. Like I said, most of us all of us in central office work year round. It's not a big deal to have to start earlier. It's not any of it. We will support our schools to make it happen. So it's your motion and your vote.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the balanced calendar and we stay with the current time that we currently have. That's what how I'm gonna put it. That we don't change no time. We keep everything the same. Just change the balanced calendar to the balanced calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Would you call for the vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Crumley?
Yeah.
Mrs. Cameron?
Yes.
Mr. Orozco?
No.
Mr. Kroll? Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. All right, now we're down to superintendent's report.
So I just have 3 things I wanted to update the board and the community on. The high school had an opportunity to participate in something called Botvin Life Skills Training. And Mr. Lozano, if I miss anything, please step in. It's a free program that we wanted you to be aware of. There's no cost to the district. But the idea is that 9th and 10th graders participate in this substance abuse, some social emotional learning, mental health. It's all about prevention. And I believe it's 10 classes. So it lasts about 10 weeks. Is that right? 5 to 10 weeks. And it is with in collaboration with the University of Boulder. And I just wanted you to be aware of it. They will talk about vaping prevention. It's all about healthy choices and healthy alternatives, lifestyle alternatives in terms of how to take care of themselves, how to prevent violence, and hoping to give them some strong life skills as they navigate their youth. So just wanted you to be aware of it.
Okay.
Assessments, we are in the middle of MASA testing. And I believe our secondary is almost complete. Is that correct, Mr.?
Yes, we're all just about at
Wyman?
5% or above 95%.
And we're required to meet the 95%. This is the annual state summative assessment that we're required to give. And I believe our elementary schools are starting on Monday. So give you an update on that. And then, as I said earlier, I wanted you with district budget and staffing, I wanted you to know that the unit value, it did go up. It went up $200. We do have 3% mandated raises for all employees. And we have insurance costs. Medical insurance has gone up 15.46%.
Wow.
Vision is going up 4%. No, dental is going up 4%. Vision is going up 3%. I think I got those numbers right. And I believe we have a lot of unfunded mandates with just a little, just right at $200 increase in unit value. So there's a lot of challenges, which is why we had to reduce the number of days in the calendar. We just couldn't afford the full amount. We've also been working on budget frantically and staffing. We've met with, as of today, we've met with every school site. We've met with every department. And we are working through the staffing for next year, and we'll have that information at budget. And with that, I don't have anything else to add. Do you guys have any questions?
No, I think I really like the idea of the Botman life skills training.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting.
I'll send you guys information. It just is like a infographic of the things that they will cover.
Okay.
I do want to say with the calendar you guys approved, I can't stress this enough, as much as we need to tell employees, and I already started to tell my members, they are going to see a lower pay contract because we're working 5 days less. So it's 5 days less pay.
That's every single calendar option. Had the
Correct.
same number.
But you'd be surprised how many employees really don't understand that. There's a lot of employees that don't understand when we went to the previous calendar, this year's calendar, that a big part of their raise was due to the extra days, not necessarily due to the raise that had mandated. There's a lot of them.
We need to just put that
Well,
out.
we can do that.
Everybody help. Tell them.
And it was in the contract. I mean, it was in the contract. It's been on the salary schedules. We've tried to make it very clear. It's in the CBA.
Yep.
I mean, we've tried to make it very clear.
Tell everybody.
Yes. Thank you for that reminder.
Right. All right. Our next are announcements. Are there any board member requests for agenda items for our next meeting?
I would like to have a board member request.
Okay.
When we were doing the 5-year plan, the presenter brought something about attendance and about we're losing that many kids. I want to know what's happening. I would like to know what.
Oh, in terms of enrollment?
Enrollment, that was a big issue. And I mean, attendance was part of it. So I want to talk about attendance,
Okay.
enrollment. What are we doing to try to make sure we offset that? Because that's a lot of kids. That's a lot of the community's money that we could be getting from the state. So I want to see what's going on. What are we doing?
Mhm.
How are we doing? And we can break it down for every single school, high school, elementary school.
Okay.
What's hurting us and what are we doing wrong and what can we do better?
Okay.
To try to improve that.
That's a good. Okay. Anything else? Bobby, do you have anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right, there will be a special meeting on May the 2nd of 2024 at 5:30 PM. And the purpose of the special meeting is for the board discussion and consideration of approval of policies for the New Mexico School Boards Association that the district will be adopting for the upcoming school year, and to consider approval of the final budget for FY 25. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn our open meeting and move into closed session, and no action will be taken. Do we have a motion?
Yes, will you read the purpose for the closed session?
Okay. Oh,
It's right here.
oh, it's right. I'm sorry. The purpose of the closed session is for the board to discuss limited personnel matters included but not limited to section 1H2 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, and threatened or pending litigation as permitted by section 10-15-1H7 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act.
Second.
Okay.
Or was that a motion? No.
Make the motion.
I will make
You
that
need the
motion.
motion.
I'm not gonna repeat all.
that.
We have the motion and the second. Would you call for the vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Pemley?
Yes.
Mr. Orozco?
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron?
Yes,
Mr. Kroll? Yes.
the motion carries.